the river. No, I actually am in a van in my driveway, but for good reason. Former President Trump has come to where I live for a fundraiser. The good news is the security around former President Trump is so extensive, all the roads were closed down while he travels. This place is shut down like a karaoke bar after someone sang Baby Shark on repeat. This place is shut down like a teenager's phone when the Wi-Fi drops, like a beach town in a snowstorm. You like those jokes? I got all of them from ChatGPT. Isn't that amazing how the world is changing? Now, here's what's not funny. How money dominates our lousy two-party political system. More than you know, okay? More than you know. How so? This fundraiser tonight is going to raise $500,000. Think about that. We're in a country where only about half the families have $1,000 in savings. This one, 500,000. Oh, I'm sorry. 500,000 ahead. $500,000 per person. Now, we haven't been told yet how many. One report I got was that it's about 100. That would be $50 million. One dinner. And you wonder why things don't change in your favor? When these people aren't busy scaring us about the other side, they are grubbing for dollars. $14.5 billion spent in the last presidential election. Double from 2016. Why? One reason. The Citizens United Supreme Court case from 2010. It made money political speech. And that meant all the regulations were going to go out the window because you can't abridge speech, free speech. Government can't make regulations to abridge it. The most dangerous money in the game is now legal money. PACs and super PACs can take a check from somebody for $70 million, $50 million, flooding your screens with propaganda and panic. You know how those like commercials are nonstop? You're like, oh my God, that's where the money's coming from. Now, one of the early aspects of Donald Trump's appeal, if you'll remember, was that he wasn't going to do this. He didn't need to fundraise because he was a billionaire, right? So he couldn't be bought by the richies. Remember, he didn't need their money. Now he's in the Hamptons being feted by some of the richest white men in the country. 500,000 ahead. And you think that money doesn't buy influence? You don't think it adds more gators to the swamp he's supposed to drain? Democrats do it too. In fact, it's what lawmakers on both sides of the shite show called our political process do more than anything else. Beg the powerful for money. And it is now legal. Tonight, we're going to look at the big presser from today about the latest understanding of the Secret Service collapse in Butler, Pennsylvania that almost wound up with an assassination of a former president. And we have a key player in politics to really dig into what I'm talking to you about right now. This guy is a money man who bundles for candidates, and he wants you to know how it works and how you are getting worked. But I'm going to start with a major surprise that is also going to have major implications potentially in the election, the return of wrongfully detained Americans from Russia. What a scene we had last night. Did you see the footage? It's all over the place. When the Americans were brought home, Joint Base Andrews, stepping onto American soil for the first time in some of their cases in years. Paul Whelan, along with Evan Gershkovich and Alsu Kurmasheva, all greeted by President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, right before a dramatic and highly emotional reunion with their families that everyone should be happy about. But of course we can't be, right? Because this is perceived not just good for these people, not just good for their families, but good for the Democrats who made the deal happen. So there's got to be hate from the other side because that's how twisted our process is. So there are questions. Did the Democrats save this deal until deep into the election? Did they use it as an ability to put Harris front and center, even though I don't know that she had anything to do with bringing them home? She was the one who spoke to reporters on the tarmac, after Biden, but she spoke to him a lot. The flip side, Trump, of course, had to bash it. He took to Truth Social asking, are we paying them cash? Saying we never make a good deal at anything, but especially hostage swaps. I guess that's not true with him, right? Right? Because it's not like this just started now. Now, the U.S. didn't pay cash, but is he lashing out because he knows that this move gives him a little bit more to worry about in November? Let's discuss with the better minds. Political reporter and strategist Scotty Nell Hughes, Democratic Convention delegate, 2020 campaign official for Kamala Harris, Ariva Martin. It's good to have you both. Ariva, I'll start with you. I am not going to, you can't answer the question because neither of us know, but I'm not going to suggest that they did this now because it's good for the campaign. I don't know that. But it is certainly good optics. But too much putting Harris front and center like this?
Not at all, Chris. And let me just correct my title. I do not have an official position with the campaign. I am a volunteer for the Finance Committee, but not getting paid. Just want to make that clear. I think what we saw yesterday...
Dusty got it wrong. Not me.
Okay, just
right under the bus, Ariva. That's how we do it at NewsNation. Right under the bus.
Okay.
They'd be lucky to have you, by the way. They'd be lucky to have you. Go ahead.
I got a lot of jobs. No time for another one. But I think what we saw yesterday was just quintessential Joe Biden. Joe Biden has said from the start that Kamala Harris was his partner as the vice president. She was never, in a second position. She was there side by side with him as these critical deals were being negotiated. So I don't think there was anything unusual about what we saw. Now, Donald Trump, as you said, is unhinged and coming apart over it because a big part of what he told us was that he was the only person, that it was only him that could negotiate the return of these hostages because of his friendship with Putin, and that Putin would allow the hostages to be returned once he's in office. So proven wrong again. That was never true in the first instance. But now we know that, as we've always known, Joe Biden is one of the most astute foreign policy experts we've ever had in the White House. And so I'm not surprised that we saw this yesterday, and I'm not surprised that Kamala Harris was front and center as a part of this prisoner swap.
Well, I give her half credit on that one, Scotty. Well argued, but I've never heard that the vice president was stride for stride with President Biden on anything except the border, and now they're still trying to figure that out. But is it the right play for Trump to kind of trash talk the deal that got these people home?
Well, let's remember, we are already 3/4 through, actually almost completely through Joe Biden's term, and now we're getting these hostages released. If he was such a great negotiator, if he was such a tough lion in the den, he would have these hostages released. Yes, he would have you hostages released years ago. But unfortunately, this is what we're doing right now. But I think it's really interesting. I am all for them tying Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as tightly together. Because right now, as long as you continue to do that, then Kamala Harris has to answer for the failed, not only foreign, but the domestic policies of the Biden administration. So if Kamala Harris wants to step up and say it, fine. But why are you doing it so far, almost at the end of Joe Biden's term? That's going to be his legacy. And I think it's going to be real interesting to know the details of why this is being and why this is happening right now.
Bounce question to you, Scotty, and then the same to Ariva. How significant is this development, do you think, for the voters?
Well, I don't think it's that significant. I think I'm glad that it's done. No matter who gets it done, it needed to be done. It needed to happen years ago. I think the voters are looking at this. If I was going right now, I'd be going, what are the specific deals? You think that Vladimir Putin just woke up today and said, I'm going to let these hostages go after such tense negotiations that have happened the last 3 years? How this has been used as a political weapon between the two countries? He's just going to wake up and decide, hey, I'm going to let him go because I'm scared of Kamala Harris? Well, if you believe that, then I think that, you'll actually believe that Dusty is actually to blame right now for getting a title wrong. Dusty never gets anything wrong, by the way. I'm not going to throw her under the bus. I think that this is something that there's This is not going to change a single vote whatsoever. But what this is going to do is once again show that it's what kind of last-minute deals are being made by the Biden administration that needs to scare all Americans. And I think we need full transparency on what exactly is going on in the White House right now and what exactly is he being cutting off on.
Now, Ariva, these deals always suck. Okay, we always wind up giving away bad guys to get our people back, and it's a source of frustration. But we always, you know what we always do. Doesn't matter who's in office. We just want the Americans back, so we just kind of like chalk it up to, all right, this is what it took. We just gave back a guy who like killed 5,000 kids, or or whatever it is we have to do it. But what I think is interesting is the spin is to position Harris as someone who is not who she was in 2020. She has now been on the world stage, and she, you see her here front and center. Is that putting too much pressure on the expectations for Harris now to show that she's got a savvy that she really wasn't allowed to have that kind of role in this administration, as far as I know?
I don't think it's too much pressure at all. And Chris, I'm not sure where you got your information from to say that Joe Biden hasn't consistently said that Kamala Harris was his partner. He has made that statement over and over again. I'm sure your very, very smart producers can find those clips from Joe Biden stating that Kamala Harris was his partner.
I know he said it. I know he said it. I'm just saying the people around Biden who I speak to on a regular basis have never, ever brought her up in connection with anything that they were working on at the time until he was getting pushed out. Then I started hearing her name in the mix.
Well, we must talk to different people, because I talk to a lot of people around Biden, too, and her name is always mentioned. But we can debate that at a different time. And to the statement about why are they getting released now, I can't imagine that anyone that's a prisoner anywhere is sitting around saying, oh, my God, since you didn't let me out 3 years ago, please don't let me out today. That's such an irrelevant point. The point is the people are free. Their families are happy. They are happy. And all Americans should be celebrating this. And typical Donald Trump and the MAGA supporters, they find a way to poo-poo on any and everything that Joe Biden does, because they now are realizing that Kamala Harris is electrifying this country, not just Democrats, but independents and those very disaffected, or those very disenchanted, I should say, Republicans, in ways that we have not seen since Barack Obama in 2007 and 2008. And when you see a race slipping away from you in the way that we have seen over the last 12 days, you just start attacking any and everywhere that you can. And that's what these attacks are. Kamala Harris is up for the challenge. Well, she has proven herself to be effective on the world stage, and she will continue to do so.
I'll tell you what, you can't say that it hasn't gone better than some people like me thought it would, okay? I thought that without process, this was going to be a lead balloon. And all the polls have moved in the right direction. They're just snapshots of a moment in time. We're in the honeymoon phase. The media is going to go sideways on Harris. That's what we do. It's just a question of when. But Scotty, this angle that I keep hearing, that wait till you hear this Harris talk more and more. Man, she's a gaffe machine. I've never heard that about her before, and I don't know that that's the best matchup with Trump. I mean, he's not exactly known for being very good with the words.
Well, let's just point out, this isn't Kamala Harris. This is the Democrats' version of Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris herself, when she's on her own, she does things like mix up world leaders. She does things like make comments and insults, Hispanic communities and communities that she's addressing. She does those word salads just like, Donald Trump does. At the same time, this is right now the Democrats putting out the best version of her. They're micromanaging her, which is real interesting considering you have a political party that is scripting every single thing about a candidate like Kamala Harris. The Republicans, they trust the American voters enough to make sure that Donald Trump himself is the one that's presenting, and they're not micromanaging that message. Maybe they should a little bit better, but they trust the voters to see exactly what's in front of their eyes and actually vote on it. Unlike the Manchurian candidate that has to read the 30-minute script in her car before she gets out.
Scotty Nell Hughes, Ariva Martin, I appreciate you both. Good points, well argued, to be continued. Ariva, I'm sorry about Dusty's mistake. I'll never let it happen again.
No problem. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you, my friend.
There goes the bus, da-dung, da-dung, right over Dusty. All right, now, I want to turn to the Veep stakes, but this is a treat for you, okay? I'm telling you, everybody is spinning you in politics. Now, sometimes that's their job. These are advocates for the two people. They're going to do that. But it's like incessant, right? Not this guy, not John Morgan, okay? This guy is a truth speaker. He is one of the only people I've ever introduced you to on this show who sounds the same in my conversations with him when we're not on TV, the same way as when he's on TV. And he knows. He has been in the game a long time in the only way that matters. John Morgan is the guy they call and say, money, 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 gimme, 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 gimme. And he is here to be a straight shooter with you about what's going on right now. My brother, it is good to see you again. Thank you for making the opportunity.
I'm happy to be here again.
So, first, a couple of points, and then I want to give you a chance to explain to people how much money matters in politics since Citizens United. The first one is, anything you've seen with the rollout of Kamala Harris that has changed your apprehension? He's a Biden guy. He's a moderate Democrat. He's not a big fan of the squad. He wasn't a big fan of this switch. Anything happened that has changed how you feel yet?
Yes. They raised $300 million. $200 million came from first-time donors. That's staggering. That's grassroots. The Trump campaign is having that fundraiser. They could have 4 of those and raise $200 million with 100 people. She raises $200 million with 40,000 people at $5 a head. 40,000 votes or 100 votes. That's big. Shocking. Number 2, millennials are up and off the couch. Millennials are offended when you start questioning somebody's race. I have grandchildren whose mother is Venezuelan and Indian. When I ask them what color they are, they say brown. They would be very offended to have Donald Trump telling them they're not brown. The word disrespect is the worst word you can use in the African-American community. There's no word worse. She was disrespected. And what that did is her sisters got up and they're coming. Souls to the polls will have nothing on her sorority sisters come November. So I've seen that. I'm surprised by it. I'm shocked by it. The last time I really saw her was when she was campaigning and fizzled out. It's a whole new person. So pleasantly surprised.
What about the VP? Does it matter to you, and who do you think it should be?
I think it will be either, look, the guy I love the most is Andy Beshear. I'm from Kentucky. He's from Kentucky. I've been a big supporter. I worry it won't be him because can you ever win Kentucky? It's going to be Kelly, maybe, or Pennsylvania. Why? Because those are swing states. Pennsylvania, Arizona. I'm betting on Kelly, the military, the astronaut, Gabby Giffords. Obama liked him a lot. So I think it matters in those states. You can just leave the governor of Pennsylvania or Kelly in Arizona, and because it's going to be in the battlegrounds. 3 or 4 states are going to determine everything.
Probably about 18 to 30 counties in 2 or 3 states is going to determine it with this, the way the Electoral College works. You know, so I'm talking with a buddy of mine the other day, and he's Jewish, and we were talking about Shapiro. Shapiro checks a lot of boxes. You know, I talked to him a lot coming out of the last election as AG, very competent guy. And, you know, we both just assumed a black woman and a Jewish guy, man, that's putting a lot on America. And it really bothers me. I almost wish that the Democrats would pick Shapiro to make the point that, no, we're not afraid of putting diversity out there. We don't believe that the country has that kind of prejudice. But would that be, you know, just wishful thinking, and they'd be setting themselves up to lose by playing the too many things that people may quietly oppose?
Well, the vice president usually doesn't make much of a difference, but Pennsylvania does. I don't know how many electoral votes, 25, 26, 24. I got a cousin who is the president of Duquesne, and he loves Shapiro, Ken Gormley. So I think he could go either way. I don't think it'll be Michigan because I don't know if they'll do 2 women. but she's fantastic. The interesting thing, Chris, is everybody used to say
Whitmer.
the Democrats had no bench. Hell, they got 2 dugouts full of people. I mean, Gavin Newsom's up in the stands. He can't even get in the dugout. And he was one of the superstars. He's academically ineligible this year. But the Democrats have got a tremendous bench. And they had to go get J.D. Vance, who might be fired before it's all over. This guy is a train wreck. He's kind of a heavier Don Jr., but a train wreck. And we're going to be seeing the clips of him calling Donald Trump Hitler. So everything that Trump wished for, which was to paint Biden as old, he's now old. He looks old compared to Vice President Harris. He's now picked this guy who has bad-mouthing forever, and now he's the vice president. So everything's going good. And look, today, the Rasmussen poll, the Trump pollster, Harris is 5 points up. That's a shocking number. That's their own propaganda machine. So, look, I was against not having a convention. The convention was basically Joe Biden nominated her, and the Clintons second and third it, and that was the convention. But guess what? Those are some smart 3 people, and it looks like they may have made the right choice.
John, I love the insights. Thank you so much. Anytime you can come on the show, you're welcome. Especially thank you for coming on a Friday night. I appreciate it. I know you spend a lot of time with family. You got a lot of plans. Thank you for taking time to be with us.
My pleasure. Bye, Chris.
All right, John Morgan. I'm telling you, you don't get to meet a lot of guys like that, okay? He's not a right, who is now getting paid to tell you embellished ideas about what he used to do. He's in it in real time. What he just broke down about the numbers and where she's getting the money from and why that matters and how that changes the calculus for a guy like him, that's how politics works. 4 minutes and 5 seconds coming up. It's been nearly 3 weeks since someone who had no business being where he was and almost assassinating a former president. Today, we got a shocking admission from the acting head of the Secret Service. I'll send it to you and what it means in context with people who did the job. Plus, he revealed some details we didn't know about the moments right before the shooter put that bullet within a fraction of an inch of Trump's head. What he said, what it means next.
In no way should any state or local agency supporting us in Butler on July 13th be held responsible for a Secret Service failure. This was a Secret Service failure, and so they should not be blamed. We're not trying to shift blame to anybody, and that's the important takeaway, that we need our state and local partners out there doing this with us every day.
Now, look, in a way, I like that it's this guy because he knows this didn't happen on his watch. So it's a little bit easier for him to be transparent. But, you know, the problem is he's ahead of his own understanding, okay? The good news is the blame game has come to an end. All the fingers are pointing at the Secret Service, and that's really where it had to wind up, you know? I mean, they're in charge. You know the expression, the buck stops here? That's the acting Secret Service director, Rowe, and he says, I got to take full responsibility. He's right. He does. I mean, yes, his men and women did the right thing once everything went wrong, right? And if there had been a worse, God forbid, of course it would be on him. The buck stops with the guys who had the main authority, and that's the Secret Service. So Rowe held this briefing and admitted that there may have been important information the Secret Service didn't have access to that could have proved crucial to stopping Trump from going on stage. Take a listen.
There was clearly radio transmissions that may have happened on that local radio net that we did not have. And so we have to do a better job of co-locating, leveraging that counterpart system, and this is going to drive our operations going forward.
All right, so now there is a supposition, though, and there is reporting that has been done that he seems to be saying is not the case. So let me present that in the form of the question to people who can actually answer it. Former Secret Service agent Paul Eklof protected multiple presidents, including Obama, Trump. Former FBI agent, NewsNation law and justice contributor Jennifer Coffindaffer. Thank you both very much, especially on a Friday. Appreciate you. Paul, so I had been reading and now assuming reports that local police were trying to tell the Secret Service that they saw a guy on the roof and that there were reports that they were trying to communicate it. Now it seemed from this guy today that there may have been information that they did not have, but he doesn't seem to specifically being transparent that they were told there's a guy with a gun on the roof.
It is shocking that the communications failures are multiple here, and I think there's a lot of levels for that, and people may not understand exactly what he's saying. They put it out on the local net. It did not make it to the state police radio that was co-located with the Secret Service and the command post. The Secret Service failed to put an agent or officer in the local command post. And one thing that I learned very interesting was that a lot of the communication was being done by text. Text is one-to-one or a small group text. It really needs to go out onto the network. It needs to go out onto the radio frequencies monitored by the Secret Service so action can be taken.
You know, Jennifer, help me, because I don't want to be cynical, and I don't like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. I don't like the Keystone Cops. I don't like how we do that to people when something goes wrong. But it really does seem like this is all about coordination. You know, you have all of these different levels of local, county, state, and federal working together, and it seemed like they didn't do anything right when it came to communication.
Well, I agree, Chris, and this is what's so shocking. I mean, they have this huge amount of responsibility, and I got to tell you, this is 101 when it comes to protective detail. You have to have established communication with all the law enforcement agencies that are involved, and they didn't. And that's what's really, I think, shocking to the American public, because they think that this looks like it has to be purposeful, because there's no way the Secret Service could be this inept as to not establish communication.
Do you believe that this was what somebody or some persons wanted to happen?
No, I don't believe that. I think it was dropping the ball in every possible way, Chris. Even if you don't have the communications, where is the responsibility of these snipers to establish their area of fields of fire? Being a sniper is one of the most boring things you can be, because you literally have to stare and look at your particular AOR, your area of responsibility. And you can't take your eyes off of that for sometimes up to hours. Who was watching the high ground? That should have been established, that it was a particular sniper's responsibility, so that even if comms go down, you have eyes on these high ground situations. It's really shocking. Every ball was dropped.
Well, and the idea that it would be ineptitude.
Paul, what do you?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The idea that it would be on purpose is outrageous. What we have is a chain of local failures that were reinforced by years of perceived successes that weren't. These communications problems didn't begin on July 13th. The world became aware of them, and the Secret Service became painfully aware that they had fallen short over the years for a number of reasons, from poor leadership, poor management, poor staffing, and certainly poor coordination. They work brilliantly with local and state police. But DHS, and for other reasons, the communications has fallen to the wayside, and it was brought in stark relief that Saturday.
They've got to start naming names and taking action against people. It's the only way that they're going to get around the corner. And I know that may not be completely fair, but it's the only way they're going to get around the corner of suspicion. There's got to be accountability. Coffindaffer, thank you very much. Paul Eklof, as always, appreciate, and to be continued. Now, I'm just going to say one thing as we go into break, and I don't want Jennifer or Paul on the screen when I say it, because I don't want them to have to own it. I'll own it. Look, there are some really big names in media that are saying things so flippantly. You think they'll try to get him again? You think they're going to do it again? That is not just irresponsible, okay? But people have to start being held to account for what they're playing to with their platforms, okay? I know you guys like to come at me for that. Fine, that's what I signed up for. I signed up for that scrutiny. But if you're going to have the biggest podcasters in the world and these people who have big platforms saying it like a fact that somebody tried to assassinate Trump and it was a plan and they're going to do it again, what good do you think can come from that when you know you don't know that? You know you're playing the Alex Jones game. What do you think you're feeding? And how do you not feel that you are responsible if anybody just decides to act on the BS that you're stating as fact? Now, you can say, oh, yeah, you do the same thing, too. Hey, we can both be wrong then, right? Then I did it, I'm bad. But it's happening right now, and it's bad, too. Breaks 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Up next. So my team kind of showed me the latest, round in one of the culture wars going on social media. This woman's at the center of it. I don't get it. I don't get it. She's got 10 million followers. I get that. It's called Ballerina Farm. Hannah Nealman. She lives on a farm in Utah with her husband, who's like a big-time heir of JetBlue. And they have this big farm, 8 kids. She's having kids, doing beauty pageants, milking cows. And all of a sudden, it's called a tradwife, like traditional, and it's like bad, and she's bad. I don't get it. I'm not saying everybody's got to milk cows and have 100 kids, but what's wrong with her choosing to do that? I don't get it, but I've got somebody who does. She joins me next. This is interesting. Dusty just sent me this. Lloyd Austin yanked the plea deals for the 9/11 terror attack mastermind, KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. 2 others also. This memo released tonight relieves the official in charge of the military commissions of oversight in the case. So this is a really good move by the Secretary of Defense. You don't give deals to guys who try to kill Americans. You don't give deals to terrorists, okay? And this was a story that I actually haven't covered yet. I've been trying to figure out where the critical mass was on it because I thought it was so screwed up, so bad. So I was trying to figure out what was actually happening with it. Now they've undone it. It's an important update. Thank you, Dusty. I forgive you for screwing up Areva Martin's thing earlier. Apparently, there's a big culture war going on social media, and I don't get it. Maybe you will. Maybe you can help me. This is a 34-year-old Mormon woman named Hannah Nealman, okay? Her account is Ballerina Farm. She's got almost 10 million followers, all right? She was once at Juilliard in New York City, a trained ballerina. She now lives on a farm in Utah with her husband and 8 kids, okay? He ain't Poe. He's an heir of the JetBlue family, okay? She spends her time milking cows, making cheese, taking care of her kids, having a lot of kids, and her husband does some beauty pageants. Here's an example of what she posts on social media.
My name is Hannah Nealman. I am Mrs. American 2023. I'm a mother of 7 children, almost 8. I'm expecting a baby in December, our Christmas baby.
Dinner was a success, so good. And now we're gonna clean up the kitchen. The kids are coloring. I could wrangle them to clean with me, but sometimes I'll let them be. I'll just clean by myself if they're being entertained.
People ask all the time, don't you miss being, dancing, the art of dance and all the things? And I do love dance, and I miss the dancing and all things. But there's so many other things you can be artistic with, including cooking.
Last week, this reporter from the British paper, the Sunday Times, went to the farm, interviewed Hannah, published an article, Meet the Queen of the Trad Wives, traditional wives. Okay. The article quoted Hannah saying this is about her choice to ditch her career and settle down. She said, back then I thought my husband and I should date for a year before marriage so I could finish school. Daniel was like, it's not going to work. We've got to get married now. When asked what sacrifices she made for her family, she replied, well, I gave up dance, which was hard. You give up a piece of yourself. The writer notes Daniel didn't want nannies in the house, so there aren't any. Her husband also said Hannah sometimes gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week. So the internet blew up like this was like The Handmaid's Tale or something like that. People were saying that the husband's abusing her. She's doing this against her will, gaslighting, the kind of thing. And it's a blow to feminism that women are saying that this is the way they want to live. Hannah replied,
A couple of weeks ago, we had a reporter come into our home to learn more about our family and business. We thought the interview went really well, very similar to the dozens of interviews we had done in recent memory. We were taken back, however, when we saw the printed article, which shocked us and shocked the world by being an attack on our family and my marriage, portraying me as oppressed, with my husband being the culprit. This couldn't be further from the truth.
Hey, first, I don't know, Hannah, but welcome to the media. So, what is this? Is this a controversy? Is it a non-controversy? Let's bring in a former member of the Mormon Church, host of the popular YouTube show, Cults to Consciousness, Shalise Ansola. It's very good to have you.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me.
So, look, I don't think we're going to disagree. Everybody gets the right to choose how they want to live their life. If you're being coerced, if you're being held against your will, if you're being gaslit, of course. But if this is what she wants to do, then, you know, this is America. You get to do that. What is your problem with it?
So I think this is a nuanced conversation because I think the tradwife movement really is a hard pendulum swing away from feminism. It's a reaction. Usually it's tied in with fundamentalist Christianity, people who think that being submissive as a wife is biblical. It's something that you're supposed to do. And it really takes away all choice and accountability or choice at all from the woman. And so I feel like in this case in particular, it's kind of teetering on the edge. She mentions in some of her previous articles how she is so devout to the LDS Church. I am a former Mormon. I can understand in the way of which she grew up, which is you are trained to be a mother and a wife, and that's your options in life. Now, seeing as how she did go to Juilliard, it's really impressive that her parents said, yeah, go live your dreams. Now, what the internet is upset about is her now husband coming in and saying, actually, instead of following your dreams, you're going to be my wife and have all these children for me. I mean, they got married 3 months after they met each other, which is also a very common Mormon thing. And so people are saying, did she actually have a choice? Was she kind of pushed into this? I feel like having the opinion of a former Mormon, I can say that it's probably a little bit of both. It seems like she does have a good head on her shoulders. In fact, she's actually capitalizing on being a trad wife by making however much money she does, posting it on social media, which is way more than most people can say who are really kind of forced into the trad wife movement. So it's kind of like a balance. I also feel like it depends on who's consuming this content. So do you have people who are forced into the trad wife movement, being stay-at-home mothers against their will, not having any agency? We've interviewed people like that. Tia Leving's on our show where she had zero choice. Right. And so if you have people like that watching her content saying, you know, this is amazing. Look at my life. It's so glamorous. And them thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I bake the bread from scratch? Why can't I do X, Y, and Z? She has 8 kids or almost 8 kids and she's on a farm. What's wrong with me? And it further pushes them into this prison that they are put under by their husbands.
I get it. And, you know, I've actually checked out your content and I like a lot of what you're doing. And it's so important because there's so many different instances in our culture where people are quietly being coerced. So I dig it. I do wonder, though, if this is right fight, wrong example. And that this is something to be concerned about. It's something that's happening, but it's not happening here. And what I don't want for you, because you're right, it is nuanced. And guess what isn't nuanced? Us as a society. And I don't want this to be seen as, oh, well, Shalise is she's a wacky lefty now, and they don't want anybody to do anything traditional. Here we go again. It's like you can't be, there's no more gender, and now there's no more man and woman. And I don't think that's what you're saying, but there is risk of that kind of recoil with using her as an example, because she seems pretty sophisticated and acting on her own accord, whether you like her choices or not.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, Chris. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because this isn't a debate on whether having traditional gender roles is good or bad. And like you said, I think it is maybe a bad example. I went through her content. I don't feel like she is being held against her will or even psychologically oppressed. I mean, we could talk about the ways the Mormon Church psychologically oppresses one within gender roles, but that's, discussion for another day. But on the surface, though, it seems like she has a good head on her shoulders and she knows what she's doing. I do feel like maybe it's taken a little bit out of proportion. Maybe there is a part of her that is feeling suffocated. I know that growing up in Mormonism, if you weren't happy, it's, well, you're probably sinning and you need to go confess, or what are you doing wrong that God isn't blessing you with happiness? And it does create this toxic positivity, this perfectionism complex that many women in Utah do face. And I think that is one thing that probably is brewing under the surface, even if she is unaware of it. Usually they are unaware of it. It's this need to be perfect and beautiful. I mean, look at her. She competed in a pageant 12 days after giving birth. Chris, I gave birth 4 months ago and I'm still not recovered. I don't know how she did it. It's highly unattainable. And honestly, I feel like it may paint the wrong picture for women also looking up to her, feeling really just like they aren't enough because they can't live up to her expectations as well.
I get it. My wife had 3 kids, but I gained all the weight. So I totally get it. It's a very hard thing. It's amazing how well she recovered. I really appreciate what you're doing. People should check out your content. I'll make sure when we put up the segment that people know how to get it. You're speaking truth in a lot of situations where people won't. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, we got a little bit time left. I'll let Dusty decide if we take a couple of calls or a final thought in the break. 3 minutes and 45 seconds in the break. 844-968-7720. All right. Dusty, who do you got?
Oh, I'm out from under the bus. Hold on. I have John from Florida.
Yeah, Chris.
I did throw you right under it. John, what's your question?
Okay, I stayed up late watching Fox News and all these trumpets last night. Their story is that Putin did this because he's scared that Trump's going to win, and he's scared of Trump. And, you know, I don't know where they get this, where Trump is totally saying he's getting out of NATO, and I don't know where they come up with these points. They must think we're as stupid as the rest of these Republicans. I don't get it.
They absolutely believe that you are so desperate for change and disruption and so desperate to be right about who is to blame for what you rightly don't like that you'll believe whatever they say. And they have the benefit of you not really having another choice because the other party has been set up as the problem. So that's why there's no backstop for them. There's no reason for them to not lie out there, beep, because there's no incentive not to. Next.
We don't have time for any more calls, but we got a huge response from that. I'm sorry, we have 30 seconds, but we got a huge response from that ballerina farm segment. A lot of controversy around that.
You know, look, the Sola makes a good point. Two things can be true at the same time. There are women who are coerced into lifestyles and decisions that are not of their own mind and their own passion and their own spirit. I just don't know that she's an example of it. And I do know that there is a risk in exaggerating a point with examples that don't really fit it, and you wind up losing the argument. All right, Dan Abrams, right after this.